Liege pop quiz here. What's the difference between this, and this? Do you have an answer? Have I stumped you? Well, let's talk why they're actually all the same. Let's do this. So the answer to this quiz is, like I said, they're all the same. But why are they all the same? Because you can see Egnite sitting right here as a miniature, and you've got the deluxe upgradable wooden pieces tokens here from a board game table game. And then you have a dexterity high-grade bamboo wooden board. Now, where am I going with all this? All I'm doing here is I'm saying, in our hobby, somehow, there have been divisions. There have been divisions made about what is acceptable to spend your money on, what is not acceptable to spend your money on. Whether that may be super heavy complex games, or light filler games, or medium weight engine building games, there seems to be more of a schism from that, mechanistically, weight-wise. But now it's very interesting, especially with the rise of crowdfunding, we have seen a division about what's acceptable to spend your money on in terms of superfluous fluff that goes along with the game. And now I say that in the most lovingly, endearingly way, because I own many of this fluff, or deluxification is really what I'm talking about here within the hobby. And there seem to be a portion of people in our hobby that seem to be willing to justify why one of these that I have shown you is much more acceptable than the other. I mean, there seems to be an interesting dichotomy or split between people willing to put out for one and people to put out for the other. Now, mainly, we see it with the deluxe Eurofication of board games. Eurofication, I went there. The deluxification, I'm going to define that right there. The deluxification of Euro games on crowdfunding. And how it has become the norm on crowdfunding, especially nowadays. When you think of a Euro game on crowdfunding, immediately, I'm going to get the deluxe version. The deluxe version is the value. That's what it's worth. When you think of metal coins, you think of upgradable resources, you think of wooden tokens, you think of all of those things, and people feel justified and okay with buying that. Then you run into this, plastic chunks. Plastic chunks molded to be put on the board. And it's interesting because therein also, we'll talk about that in a second, it jacks it up. And you have plenty of people that are willing to pay extra for this deluxification. Because let's be very clear, Egnite here is a deluxification. There can be no denying it, doubting it, or anything else. Otherwise, you would have cubes attacking each other in an RPG, campaign, dungeon crawl, whatever it may be. It's true. And there are plenty of people that are willing to be okay with paying extra for this or this, right? But they both have the same functionality in the game. This is no different than the cardboard. This is no different than a wooden cube or even a token. It's not. It's not. You may like one aesthetically more. You may be willing to personally shell out more money for one of them than the other, based on your tastes, based on your usage, based on your what gets to the table. I'm going to throw a third one into the mix, and this is going to be sort of a catch-all a little bit. But we're talking about this. This is a dexterity. This is from Pathways, the board game that's currently on crowdfunding, where you're flicking discs in here. I mean, how many people have you ever heard say, I can't afford a crokinole board, a really nice crokinole board. And then they have like 3 huge dungeon crawl all-in CMON games, right? You can. It's the same thing. A really nice crokinole board, a kind of okay crokinole board, or an upgraded dexterity or abstract game even. I just backed Sum 8 on Kickstarter. I got the wooden version, which cost me over twice as much as the original plastic version. You know what? I deluxified it. Is that any better or worse? No, it's not. It's how I choose to spend my money in terms of what's worth it. But I think we need to stop, and this is the point of this video, I think we need to stop glorifying one over the other based on our tastes. I mean, I saw plenty of people saying this wasn't worth it. The value isn't there. Well, this isn't anything more valuable. Eye of the beholder, right? So it's something you have to think about. And if you're concerned about most resaleability, well, sure, these other two things are going to have slightly more resale value. But who's to say that this won't have resale value either? Because I look at editions like Tak, the super deluxe editions of Tak that when it came out that were limited, those are holding up their value. It's not as popular. It's not going to be as easily resold if that's your main concern. But again, on this channel, I argue that that shouldn't be your main concern regardless. I think if you can get it played and, you know, that makes it worth it. But I'm arguing as well that these are things that we need to, as a community, get off our high horse and say, you know what, man? You love miniatures to go with your game? That's awesome. I am so glad that that adds value for you, not this, but adds value for you when you play it. Hey man, you really love metal coins. I rag on metal coins all the time and on my channel. But you know, I need to do better at that as well, because the thing I'll say though, as much as I sort of jokingly talk about it all the time, man, if you like metal coins and you want metal coins for every single one of your games, and that gives you joy and you play those games and it brings a better value to you, I'm all for it. I am all for it. The thing I'm not all for, now the thing I'm not all in favor of all three of these things, that sort of is alongside of all three of these things, is the fact that it's becoming routine. It's becoming rote. People need a certain deluxification in order to do it. You know, the core game has to have at least this level of production, when, you know, it really doesn't, perhaps. Because really what it's also happening is it's causing significant inflation of prices. Now again, materials, time, all of that stuff, production, labor, I understand that. I'm not arguing against that. I expect some of it. But since I started in this hobby not long ago, probably many of you have been even in it longer than I, and so I can't compare by any means. You know, the average price of, whether it's, again, this or this guy, has definitely gone up. And more so than to account for what the normal increases I would expect. Sometimes it hasn't, but sometimes it definitely has. When you think of deluxified Euro, are you thinking anything less than $100 nowadays? When you think of heavy miniature game, are you thinking anything less than $150? Especially on the crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is especially guilty of it. Now, I'm not going to say that retail isn't guilty of it a time or two as well, because it is, but you also will find some great things. Cosmic Frog, Flick of Faith, both with amazing neoprene mats at a retail level. Things like Root as an in-between. Again, a little bit more expensive. I would argue that maybe the best example for all of this, the standard that we should be going for, Spirit Island. Yeah, Spirit Island tells the story with mechanics. You just got little huts. Little tiny, little plastic houses and guys. Because the rest of it outshines it, and that's okay. And again, it's not cheap, but the core of Spirit Island is not going to cost you $100. The core of Pandemics are not going to cost you $100. They, you know, my Pandemic Iberia back there, it's got little more Clue-esque, if you've ever played the original Clue, little tokens as your pandemic people that you're playing as. And you know what? It works fantastic. And that's okay too. I think the point of this in the end is you don't need that stuff. If you like it, that's great. But it's completely okay to support a game that doesn't have that stuff as well. I am going to be supporting many a publisher at the retail side of things, not on crowdfunding, but at the retail side of things, because I also don't need some of the deluxifications. And I think that is an equally good way to support those sorts of publishers that are doing it that aspect as well. They're catering to both ends, and I think you need to applaud and be okay with the lesser production as well. That's all. Rambling, me, topic, deluxification-ish, all in one. Been sitting on this one for a little while, so it feels good to get it out. Let me know what you think. How do you feel about it? What do you think? Are you okay with it? Where do you draw the line? Where do you justify things, or how do you justify things? How does your mind work in that sense? I'm just curious. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Those were mine. Stay classy. Egg night, get in front and center. Have a great day. See you around. Smash the like button. Tell other people about this video. Let's do this.